Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Horror Mine, the home for all things horror. My name is Vic Shy, and the other day, I found myself rewatching the Silent Hill film adaptation that came out back in 2006. I hadn't watched it in years, and I remember never being too fond of it the first time around. However, after taking the time to watch it again after all these years, my friends, I absolutely fell in love with it. The film really hit home for me this time around, and I truly appreciated everything that I was seeing on screen. I'll be breaking down the film and discussing why I believe it to be one of the best video game to film adaptations. Also, I want to take the time to say thank you to everyone who subscribed to the channel. I truly appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you're all enjoying my content. Silent Hill is my favorite video game franchise, with Silent Hill 2 being my all-time favorite game, so I am so excited to be talking about this film with you all. Without further ado, turn off the lights, and let's talk horror movies! Our movie begins with our two main characters, Rose and Christopher DaSilva, looking for their daughter Sharon. Sharon has recently been plagued with a series of nightmares that have been causing her to sleepwalk. While looking for Sharon, Rose runs through a tunnel and we see the name Cheryl written on the wall. Cheryl being the video game counterpart of Sharon. Rose sees Sharon standing at the edge of a cliff. She manages to stop Sharon from a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Sharon, who is completely out of it, starts to yell, "Home! Silent Hill!" numerous times.
Home! We're going home. Silent Hill! Silent Hill!
The concerned couple embrace their child, and we then see a really awesome looking title sequence. Rose decides that it's time for answers and believes she will find those answers in Silent Hill. Rose and Sharon share a nice mother-daughter moment in a field underneath a tree as we're treated to some of the film's beautiful music. The film's soundtrack was one of the main reasons that made me truly appreciate this film. The movie takes songs directly from the games, specifically Silent Hill 1 through 4, which managed to truly set the tone and atmosphere throughout the entire film. Chris finds out that Rose plans to take Sharon to Silent Hill thanks to a good old browser history search. At a gas station, we meet our next major character, Bram's police officer, Sybil Bennett, who is taken directly out of the first game. Rose takes a look at Sharon's drawing book and notices that her pictures are darker and much more sinister than before. She questions Sharon about the picture, which causes her to freak out and catches the attention of Officer Sybil. Rose assures Sybil that everything is fine and that they don't need any help. Rose and Chris have a conversation over the phone where Chris asks her not to take Sharon to Silent Hill. We find out that Sharon is in fact adopted, and he states that she needs medicine and constant care, something that Rose says hasn't been effective. On their way into Silent Hill, Rose suddenly gets pulled over by Sybil, who was following them. Rose proceeds to floor it and speeds away from her. While making her daring getaway, a little girl walks right in front of their car. Rose wakes up from the wreck, but Sharon is nowhere to be found. We see that she is now surrounded by a thick coat of fog and ashes are falling from the sky. 15 minutes into the film and we are already introduced to the town of Silent Hill, and it looks absolutely amazing. The film does such a great job in making the town look just like it did in the video games. The sound design in this scene is also great, as you can hear the emphasis put on Rose's footsteps as she is walking through the streets, something that I will always be fond of and remember from the video games. Rose sees Sharon running through the streets and begins to run after her. Sharon leads her to a set of steps down a dark alley, and we get our first transition to the other world. Ladies and gentlemen, this scene was done so well. I can tell that they took the time and effort to try and recreate the Otherworld transition from the first game. Everything worked so well for me. The loud sirens, Rose's use of the lighter in the dark, and the actual look of the Otherworld itself. They even utilized fixed camera angles like those used in the games during the scene. Rose, completely shocked and disturbed by what's going on, comes across a gutted man hanging from a fence by barbed wires. We are then introduced to the first of this film's many monsters, the Grey Children, who are looking absolutely awesome and terrifying, but aren't as homicidal as their in-game counterparts, as none of them appear to be wielding sharp knives. As Rose attempts to get away, the Grey Children begin to vanish into thin air. She wakes up in a bowling alley back in the fog world. Rose then notices that the road into town is completely destroyed, making it impossible to get out. Rose then meets the movie's version of Dahlia Gillespie. As we'll see later on, this version of Dahlia is very different from her in-game counterpart. Rose attempts to show Dahlia a picture of Sharon, but Dahlia tries to snatch the locket from her.
It's mine! Get away!
You might want to be careful there, Dahlia. You almost fell off that cliff and into the abyss. Back in the real world, we see that Chris is attempting to locate Silent Hill and track down Rose. Rose makes it back to her vehicle and sees several of Sharon's pictures laid out on the ground. She finds one of the more sinister pictures inside of the car, which appears to show a school. She attempts to call Chris on her cell phone, but is only able to leave a voicemail. We see that a very distorted portion of Rose's voice message was able to get through to Chris's cell phone. We also discover that there are several police officers already looking for her and Officer Sybil Bennett. Chris meets with Inspector Thomas Gucci, who tells him that he will help Chris look for Sharon and Rose. Back in the fog world, we see Officer Sybil arrest Rose for evading. Sybil attempts to take her back to Bram's, but also notices that the road out of town is completely destroyed. They are then confronted by a monster called the Lying Figure, the first monster that James Sunderland encounters in Silent Hill 2. Sybil quickly takes care of the lying figure and Rose makes a run for it. I absolutely love the time and effort that it took from all the cast and crew to make these creatures come alive. All of the monsters in the film were created using prosthetics and costumes, which gave them a much more authentic and terrifying feel. Everyone looked like they had a ton of fun during production and were very passionate about making this a faithful adaptation of the video games. Rose makes it to Midwich Elementary School and inside finds a set of keys along with a flashlight. She comes across 3 individuals, all wearing heavy-looking large suits, with one of them holding a caged bird. Rose takes off running and hides out in one of the classrooms. She notices a desk belonging to Alyssa Gillespie with the word witch written all over it. We then see Alyssa running across the hallway and Rose once again gives chase. Alyssa leads Rose into the upstairs bathroom and hides out in one of the stalls. We hear Alyssa creepily crying from inside one of the stalls, and Rose says that she's going to help her. When she opens the stall door, however, she sees a dead man named Colin, who looks like he just unsuccessfully attempted to escape a jigsaw trap. Dare you, double dare you is written all over the walls with arrows pointing in the direction of Colin's dead body. Rose reaches into his mouth and pulls out what appears to be a blue shard with writing on it. Now, I never noticed this before, but the film manages to somehow capture the feel of a survival horror game pretty well. Rose is practically alone the entire time, minus a few character interactions every now and then. She has very limited resources and has to find items throughout the town to help her survive and to help with her objective. A few examples of this so far are when Rose uses her lighter during the first transition to the other world, finding Sharon's pictures which lead her to the school, finding a set of keys that then give her access to a flashlight, and finding a clue inside of Colin's mouth that eventually leads her to the Grand Hotel. I just thought that it was a nice touch and much appreciated addition to the film, and it helps it stand out from other video game adaptations I've seen. Rose goes to leave the bathroom but sees the three suited individuals right outside the door. She quickly locks the door and they attempt to kick their way inside. The bird in their cage then starts going crazy and the trio make a run for it. We are then treated to the next Otherworld transition, which looks absolutely amazing. We then see Colin come to life in the form of a disgusting monster. His body is bent almost in half and he is forced to crawl on the floor with his hands. Everything he touches becomes disgustingly contaminated. While making a run for it, Rose sees the three suited men being eaten alive by thousands of bugs. We then get an appearance from the legendary Pyramid Head, who looks totally awesome on screen. She again comes across Alessa, who looks a lot more ghostly and sinister, aggressively drawing a picture. During these events, we cut back to the real world and see that Chris is simultaneously looking for Rose in the same exact area she is located. We are then treated to this very awesome yet depressing shot. Chris realizes that he felt Rose and still feels her lingering presence. I really love the way that both realities are being portrayed simultaneously in this scene. It shows another aspect of Silent Hill that I always wondered about while playing the video games. Not a lot of people were too fond of Chris's storyline, but I felt like it really added another important layer of emotional depth to the film. Detective Gucci catches up to Chris and tells him the official catchphrase of 2020. Sybil comes to Rose's rescue and the two hide out inside of what looks like a boiler room. Suddenly, Pyramid Head's sword pierces through the door, narrowly missing Rose and Sybil. Everything then returns back to normal and Pyramid Head disappears. Rose tells Sybil that she found a clue and that Sharon is possibly at this unknown hotel. The two make their way to the Grand Hotel, which was never part of the series before the film, but makes a return in Silent Hill Homecoming. They hear yelling coming from inside the hotel and again see Dahlia, who is being yelled at by a girl named Anna. Anna tells them that she is scavenging for food and that there is a whole community of people still living inside the town, taking refuge in the church. They notice a red symbol drawn on the ground, which Anna says is a symbol of their faith. Sybil finds a drawing of what appears to be a girl burning at the stake inside of the mailbox for room 111. Back in the normal world, Chris breaks into the building holding all the confidential police records from Silent Hill. He reads a police report written by Inspector Gucci, which details that on November 1st, 1974, a 33-year-old female brought her 9-year-old daughter to the Grand Hotel. They were in the company of a female known to the victim, 5 males, and 4 females wearing veils. The report states that the suspects grabbed the 9-year-old victim and forcibly confined her in room 111. The child was discovered and freed by Officer Gucci, but was found to have been burned alive and suffering from third-degree burns. Chris discovers that the 9-year-old child was Alessa Gillespie, and that she looks exactly like Sharon. Back in the fog world, we see that Rose, Sharon, and Anna are looking for room 111. Rose notices a large painting of a woman being burned at the stake. Anna describes it as the first burning, which took place before the town had a name. Rose cuts the painting down the middle to reveal room 111 hidden behind it, in true video game fashion. They find a hole in the wall which leads to a separate building behind the hotel. Rose makes her way to the top of the building on her own and sees a crying Alessa in the corner.
Look at me. I'm burning.
We see a flock of birds flying out of the building and Anna tells them that they must leave because the darkness is coming. They all run towards the church and see dozens of people also running for refuge. Before going inside, Anna decides to throw one last rock at Dahlia and pays the ultimate price for it. Pyramid Head strips her naked and then tears her skin off her entire body in one fluid motion. Damn! Anna's death is one of the more creative and painful death scenes I've seen in recent memory, and it's awesome. Rose and Sybil make their way inside the church and are automatically accused of being witches by the citizens. The citizens begin to swarm Rose and Sybil decides to take action. We then meet our next character, the leader of the religious cult and community, Christabella. Rose tells her that she is looking for her missing daughter, and Christabella says that only the demon knows where she is. Christabella agrees to help Rose meet the demon, and we get another one of the movie's awesome shots accompanied by the awesome soundtrack. They head to Brookhaven Hospital, where Christabella tells them that the demon's lair is located all the way at the bottom and can only be accessed via a single elevator. She attempts to return Rose's locket, but notices that Sharon looks exactly like Alessa. Sybil manages to fight off the group of men and shuts the elevator door with Rose inside. She points her gun at Christabella and proceeds to show everyone why you don't fire warning shots. The group of men then proceed to beat the ever-living hell out of Sybil, which was extremely hard to watch for me. Rose makes it all the way to the bottom floor and has to navigate her way to the demon's lair. She then comes across a terrifying group of nurses that seem to be attracted to her light. In an absolutely tense scene, she makes her way across the wave of nurses and manages to get them fighting amongst themselves. Rose makes it to the end of the hall and finally meets with Alessa. We learn that Alessa was Dahlia's daughter and that she was looked down upon by the townsfolk for not having a father. Christabella and the rest of the cultists deemed her a witch and believed that burning her would purify the town. Christabella convinced Dahlia to hand Alessa over to her, and she was burned alive behind room 111 of the Grand Hotel. During the ritual, the pit of fire burning Alessa tipped over, causing the fire to spread throughout the entire room. A fire that is still burning underground even to this day. We see that Officer Gucci was the one who freed Alessa from her chains, which is how he obtained the scars on his hands. While in the hospital, the darkness came to Alessa and vowed that she would make the town pay for what they had done to her. We find out that Sharon is all the good that is left of Alessa. She was hidden away at an orphanage outside of Silent Hill and later adopted by Chris and Rose. In the present day, we see that Alessa has grown up and is still alive. We also see that an eyeless nurse is walking around, presumably Lisa from the video games. Dark Alessa tells Rose that they simply want revenge and that they need her help. Back in the fog world, we see that Dahlia has been hiding Sharon all along. Christabella finds Sharon and then takes her captive. She is taken back to the church where we see Sybil is still alive and also being held captive. Christabella believes that those who aid the demon must also be cleansed. In a truly horrible turn of events, Sybil is burned alive by the cultists. Rose arrives at the church soon after but sees that Sybil is already dead. She confronts the cultists and tells them that Christabella has been using their fear of faith to control them. Christabella suddenly stabs Rose with a knife straight through her chest. Blood begins to pour profusely out of Rose's chest, which allows the darkness to enter the church, and we get a truly unique otherworld transition. We then see Rose's wound begin to heal as adult Alessa rises up looking like a true final boss. Alessa proceeds to brutally murder all of the cultists inside the room using barbed wire. Christabella rightfully gets the most painful death out of all of them as she is completely ripped apart with barbed wire from the inside. Dark Alessa also joins the party and does a sinister little dance underneath Christabella as her blood rains down on her. Sweet revenge. Rose embraces Sharon and attempts to block her view from the horrors taking place inside of the church. Dahlia wonders why Alessa chose to spare her, and Rose tells her that mother is God in the eyes of a child. Rose and Sharon get back in their vehicle and drive away from Silent Hill. In the film's final scene, we see that Rose and Sharon are still stuck in the fog world and are unable to return to the normal plane of the living. Chris feels Rose's presence inside of the house, but she is nowhere to be found, and the movie ends. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the film adaptation of Silent Hill. My friends, as I've stated before, I absolutely love this film. I feel that at the time of release it was underappreciated and didn't deserve all the negative reviews that it got. The film does such a good job in bringing the material from the video games onto the big screen. I absolutely love the fact that they used the soundtrack from the video games and didn't try to come up with their own generic soundtrack just for the film. Resident Evil. Not only did they manage to faithfully recreate the game material, but the plot formula really reminded me of traditional old-school survival horror, which I loved. To me, this film absolutely felt like Silent Hill, and I believe that it's one of the best video game to film adaptations ever made. I feel that the film managed to capture a true sense of dread and despair, yet also managed to retain the certain beauty that the games had about them. I highly recommend my fellow Silent Hill fans that may have not liked the film the first time around to give it a second chance. I feel that the film has aged beautifully, and I hope that more people come to appreciate it with time, just as I did. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have a horror movie you'd like to see me break down, let me know in the comments down below. My friends, I cannot wait to see y'all right back here in the Horror Mine. Y'all stick around.